And also just different perspectives, I think, as to how different projects are solving this problem. But to kick us off, seeing as tonight is the Ethereum Super Meetup, I figured I'd ask the starting question, and anybody can jump in on this one, but Ethereum 2.0, it's coming, so why do we need any other solution out there? So Jack, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I'm an Ethereum fan, certainly, and I would think that in Chinese world there are 360 different industries, right? At least you need a couple chains to solve different problems, right? And we are following the footsteps of certainly Ethereum, right? I hope that they will be very successful. But at the same time, there are a lot of problems we're trying to solve. And I think interoperability is one of them. They're not looking at it at this moment. So many other problems to solve, and certainly we want to connect all these different chains. I think that's very important.
Chikai, we were talking about this earlier, but Seller is working on a layer 2 solution, both for the Ethereum network as well as Dfinity. If you think about the future roadmap of these protocols, what's important about layer 2? Why do we need it today? Why do we need it after potentially layer 1 solutions start to become more scalable?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. Yeah, so first, like the idea of layer 2 scaling is basically you move most of your transactions off-chain by only resorting to the blockchain when you want to dispute a state or settle a state. Okay, I think the question can be answered by in the long term and also in the short term. Okay, so in the long term, I think that depends on the ultimate goal of blockchain scalability. Yeah. So everyone thinks we can continuously improve the scalability of the blockchain. We have 1,000 TPS, 10,000 TPS, and even 1 million TPS. But is that really enough? Yeah. So I think the ultimate goal of blockchain scalability should be aligned with the current internet scale. So basically, if you look at the current internet scale, basically every second there will be 53 terabytes information being transferred on the internet. So no matter how scalable you improve upon the current layer 1 blockchain, there still be some bottleneck, because essentially the performance of your blockchain system will be no better than a system where a single node arbitrates basically every traffic. So that's a kind of performance bottleneck. So in the long term, we should need a way to scale out the blockchain just like today's internet. So that's, I think, why the layer 2 are coming in the long term. In the short term, I think the answer is that we can immediately start using the speed up provided by layer 2 right now. So for example, Ethereum 2.0, it may still take 1 or 2 years for the developers or for the customers to use that. But right now, for example, with Cirrus Network SDK, and you can basically start to have tens of thousands TPS on top of Ethereum right now. Yeah.
So Jun, we were talking last night a little bit about the obstacles, I'd say, that are still stopping mainstream industries, mainstream companies from using. I think we've heard a lot over the last couple of years, TPS. Scalability is one problem. What are the other problems that are stopping us, or are we ready for mainstream users? And what else do you think are those gaps that need to be solved by the industry?
Yeah, to support the mainstream business, especially different industry, we have 2 key things. One is a lot of need a deep cost management, not only in the application level, also infrastructure level. They need a deep application, and to reach to the production level, you need a kind of flexibility and, of course, include the scalability. Another point is when you support a real business, mainstream business, you need to link a real business process. Currently, we are building trust based on the technology. No matter smart contract or digital assets, all is technology to support the trust. But in the real business scenario, most trust is from legal system, from community, from people by people, or company to company. Those kind of trust should be integrated to a decentralized mechanism. You need decentralized identity, data exchange, reputation, contract, signature service. All is kind of the kind of scalability or kind of module supported. So it's more important when you integrate it with different IT system or even permission blockchain or other public blockchain. That is platform that support real business.
And I think, one of the perspectives that we've been putting a lot of focus in on this topic of mainstream adoption is really that some of the base layer protocol designs are interesting, but from an app developer's perspective, it's almost too complicated. They want something that kind of gets surfaced up as a tool or a piece of infrastructure that's easier and easier for app developers to use. We were talking briefly about what Elastos is up to. You guys are building out, as you call it, the new web. How do you view, what the interaction is going to be between a regular developer and the protocol, or what's going to be the gap between that developer and the tools and pieces of infrastructure that they use to build their solutions on top of Elastos or on top of any other blockchain system?
Here's my perspective, right? Well, I was actually fascinated or intrigued by the notion of world computer. So when I first run into blockchain, I felt something amazing. When I ran into blockchain 2 years ago, 2016, I ran into the notion of world computer, right? Basically, I've been doing operating systems or computers for 35 years. The idea, actually, if you see everybody is having an arm race about who is doing a better world computer. Let's say, but then when we compare the old computers, there are real-time computers, scientific computers, fault-tolerant computers, autonomous driving kind of machine learning kind of computers, right? We have definitely it's not one size fits all. How many people realize actually on this iPhone, right? There are at least 40 CPUs, 40 computers to build this one computer, and on like Mercedes-Benz, at least 100. Computers, right, built into a Mercedes-Benz, like a autonomous driving computer, iPhone on the way, right? So basically, when we see different computers, we have to go back to the fundamentals. Can we build a network of computers? That's very, very important. And also, when you build an iPhone with 40 computers, and which one is the one running apps? Which one is running at the user level, like virtual machines, running on top of it? Which one is really running as an infrastructure, as the core backbone CPUs, right? So that said, we are building this new web of computers. New web of computers, not only web of blockchain computers, also consists of iPhones and Android phones, right? Normal computers and also virtual machines. In a month, in April, we're going to announce this new smart web. This is a new incarnation of another www web. Www web is a web of data, and can we build a web of code? And so we are going to run like Ethereum sidechain at the user level, on demand. Say Linux, you can run multi-processes on demand. Can you launch multiple Ethereum sidechains on demand? So we are going to have Ethereum compatible sidechains next month. And we are also going to run Neo smart contracts. We're going to have a name point. We're going to have IPFS running at the infrastructure level, the storage. We're going to have like DPoS, right? And also we're trying to do Bitmain. Currently, we have about 1 million set-top boxes running this smart network. Currently running, at this point, we have about 500,000 active nodes. Some machines are off, some machines are on. So that's what we have right now. We don't really scale up in a way. We borrow actually from, we're standing on giant shoulders. We don't really do like Ethereum sidechain or Neo sidechain or like Bitmain kind of Bitcoin chains, right? But we borrow the code, put them into a web of chains and computers.
So, one thing that you said in there that makes me think of Icon, network of computers. Icon, you guys have been involved since very early on in setting a lot of the discussion around interoperability. Obviously, WebChain's in a very similar space. What's your view on this concept of networking between blockchains? What's going to prompt that to become a more real part of how these systems evolve? We were talking a little bit about standardization. There's different people working on different styles of interoperability. What's Icon's perspective on this, and how are you guys solving that?
Again, we we are waiting kind of like a remittance, your kind of networking. But I believe those, we call them friend chains. Currently, we have our own main chain, but we do expect you guys contributing because there are different computers on the internet. So we do expect different kinds of work computers to build this new internet. And on top of this new internet, we run virtual machines. Virtual machines like virtual web services, on-demand. Web services without website is what we're shooting for. Because when we talk about dApps, we are literally talking about three things. One is, of course, like sections, right? And of course, never forget, there's also website and the browsers or the clients. So if, let's say, CryptoKitty, dApps is something you cannot shut up by a third party. So if you have a CryptoKitty, but then the CryptoKitty company shut off the website, you have a kitty, but you cannot run the kitty. Basically, you lost your assets. Can you have a smart web without websites, web services without websites, launching web services on demand, right? And with a browser, no more off-chain, on-chain, everything is level.
Josh, what do you think?
If I come back to your original question about okay. So, well, as some of you might know, that actually Iconics started as a private chain solution provider, right? So basically, we are also, of course, we agree that it is very, very important for us to make an interoperability between the really big and public platform, but also we have a little bit of focus on now, which means that there are a lot of private chains in the world, and then we are trying to also make some kind of connection between the private chain and also our public chain, which is basically interconnected with the different private chains that we build by using our loop chain engine. So, because, I mean, for example, like we are working, for example, with some of the banks in Korea, which basically pretty much hesitate to really have some kind of connection with the public chain. But we try to integrate some kind of time-stepping feature from the public chain to be able, so that they can actually use our time-stepping to validate the transaction in the private chain. So those kind of actually trial that we're trying to make, it is kind of a very interesting and meaningful step to make some kind of connection between the private and public chain. And also coming back to the question about the standardization, there are a lot of also interesting standards making body around the world, because interoperability is not just the blockchain focused issues. Interoperability is needed in every technology sector. This is why there are several standard making bodies such as like International Standards Organization, ISO, like International Telecommunication Union, ITU, which is basically a UN organization. But they are really trying to make some kind of institutional approach to make it standard, right? But I mean, I don't want to say that actually we need some kind of really, only single, technical standard which should be, used by everyone. Rather, what they do is try to, identify what are the really minimum technical requirements, what are the minimum considerations that, we have to think about if we want to make interoperability between different technologies. So by doing that, we can avoid a situation where a lot of, the unnecessary multiple efforts done by multiple people, right? So that we can avoid that. So, but the problem is that if you go to this kind of standard making meeting, mostly they are like the government people, like the academia, they have some kind of different perspective, and there's no really dialogue channel between this kind of, institution people and the actual technology expert that we can see here. So basically, what we wanted to do is to make some kind of dialogue together with this kind of, institutional project. So this is why we currently actually, participate in some kind of standard making process with the ISO and ITU, and then this is the point to make us really dialogue together with them.
Thanks. And I think we're going to, I want to leave a few minutes, but before, for audience questions, but before we do, maybe we'll quickly go through, and I think one question that I get often about the Aeon project, and I'm sure everybody else gets, is we're all working on very, very ambitious technical roadmaps. We're working on things that have very meaningful global impact. Some of us will make it, some of us will not. Time will tell. It takes money to do that. How many of us have thought about the time it's going to take for our solutions to make it to mainstream adoption? And how do we make sure that we maintain kind of sustainable, I don't know if you can call them business models, but call them sustainability within our organizations to make sure that we're alive by the time we get there? I mean, I think many people in the audience probably saw the last couple of months, we've seen two major announcements coming out of the NEM Foundation, where it doesn't take much for a large project to come very, very close to the edge. So maybe a question for you, Jack, and we'll quickly go through, and I'll say quickly just so that we can get to some audience questions. So quickly go through and give your perspective about sustainability within your projects.
Sure. We get this question a lot as well. We are targeting, let's say, having enough fund. We found our initial fundraising, and also a lot of points we still have no control. We're targeting at least multiple years or up to 10 years around that time, and based on, of course, based on the crypto market, right? And we'll adjust our spending, right? If the market goes up, and we'll spend more, right? But at this time, we are following our roadmaps and pretty much complete the 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and this year we're doing 4.0, which is integration with the private chain solution, right? So we pretty much follow our, the milestones we defined in our white paper. So as long as we're targeting to that multiple years, we have enough funding to support this network, we should be fine. At the same time, we have other mechanisms. Right? Certainly, once we have this non-profit organization running this non-profit network, we still can have for-profit businesses that's self-sustaining to build applications on top of this network. Right? And we can continue to raise funds through many mechanisms like STOs or traditional VCs, many other ways. Right? Continue to fund this network. Certainly, I think once we get the cross-chain working, let's say bridge with Bitcoin, bridge with Ethereum, and many other chains, all in the same network, there will be a new economy. I'm sure that there will be a business model for us, for everybody.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's a very good question. So I think the key thing, like at least for Zen network, is in order to be sustainable, just like using the fund we have raised so far is not actually a sustainable way. So the aim of Zen network in 2019 is actually to find and explore a legit business model that actually generates new revenues. Yeah. And as a layer 2 project, we first time we enable a highly interactive applications on top of Ethereum, and also we can enable instant payments. So we're thinking about how can we find basically a legit business model of that. And just like a few weeks ago, we just launched like a new product, user-facing product. It's called StellarX, which is basically an esports gaming platform for mini games. So basically, you can play, for example, some games like Go or chess games, computer skills with your friends. And these games are fully decentralized and on top of existing blockchain by using the layer 2 technology. And the players will basically put some entry fee and get some prize if they are good at games. Okay? So basically, at Stellar, we have built up a production level infrastructure of layer 2, which basically can provide sort of instant payments services. So basically, during this process, we can basically take off some of their entry fees as a kind of a fee to organizing this kind of matches. And that's something we have been trying to identify what is the good business model in a layer 2 space. And we actually hope to break even in this year without any new fundraising.
Jun, you guys are a very high-profile project in ontology. Maybe you would have a perspective that I think is probably interesting.
Yeah, first of course we have currently have enough resource can support us to 3 years or more than that. And but from a long-term standpoint, I think two strategies. One is we will involve technical service is just a small part, but we will involve a lot of business operation in our ecosystem, different project. That is long-term business strategy. Another is for the public community-based project. One thing is very important is building your reputation. You should very care about your promise for the community, especially your technical roadmap. For example, last year, the ontology almost finished all the promise for the technical progress, and people will trust you. Yes, maybe blockchain will be next big things like the internet, But who is Google? Who is Amazon? People will choose that. Who is the future superstar? If you can keep your promise every step, people think, okay, you have a potential to be a superstar. They will put more money to support you. That is very important. Because main token, you have some parts of allocation supporting a long-term development. But how high value about this allocation is quite important. So reputation is more important, I think.
I know that we haven't gotten to you guys yet, but I just want to make sure we're watching time. Let's go to a quick few audience questions, and we'll see if we can get you guys to jump in. But a few minutes for questions from the audience. So if there's anybody who has a dying question for somebody on stage or just in general. Happy to continue asking questions if you don't have them. Okay, well, Josh, why don't we go to you? Let's talk about Icon and your path to sustainability.
Right. It might not be a really one-size-fits-all solution, but from Icon, actually this is really a realistic question for us because we only have 150 people working in the foundation, and more than 70% of the people are developers, and we definitely have to, make our organization to be sustainably growth. So basically one thing, of course, we're really trying to nurture the idea of ecosystem in a public chain so to make the lot of transaction happen, but that's kind of a long way to go. But on the other side, just like the mentioned, we also have some kind of make a lot of efforts to expand our private chain solution to the different verticals. Because there are a lot. We found a lot of interest from the government, like insurance, like financial companies, and the different vertical industry verticals. And then we've been building a lot of partnership with the different organizations, even like international organization, even charity organization, the non-profit organization who want to use the blockchain for their improve their services, and that's one thing actually as a business model that we're trying to make in our organization at least mid-term and sustainable.
Rob?
Well, for us, again, we are one of literally a rare project exists. Well, we are building a new web, right? I have two role models. One is Satoshi Nakamoto, and we disappeared 3 years into the project. And the other role model is Netscape. Netscape started www. 3 years later, and unwillingly it disappeared, right? So for Elastic Foundation, it's been a year and a half for the project, and the new web will be launched within a month, in April. That said, we have another 2 years of reserves. And after the 2 years, we don't have a business model, and we're willingly, right, after we exhaust all the key points, and the foundation will disappear. And in the meantime, we're going to launch something called a Cyber Republic, which take over the mining, the installations. The coins will be managed by something called a Cyber Republic by consensus. So they vote on, you can think of it as National Science Foundation, right? So everyone is encouraged to apply for funding, and there's a consensus give you funding to make sure the smart web will be self-sustaining, self-running without a foundation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I think, there's lots to cover on this topic, so we're going to probably cut it there. When we talk about scalability, interoperability, there's lots of different approaches, and I think we're at that stage in the industry still where we need to be in a mode of experimentation. We'll see what kind of lasts and survives, but at the very least, I think with projects like Aeon and WANchain, and Stellar, Elastos, Icon, and Ontology, there's a lot of good, smart people working on some of these issues, so lots to look forward to. So thank you so much for joining us on the panel. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you.